Sometimes, betrayal doesn't arrive with a bang. It enters quietly, like a shadow slipping beneath the door, hiding in routine smiles and ordinary evenings. My boss and I sat in his dimly lit office, both of us watching the footage without a word. The only sound was the low hum of the computer and the faint rustle of breath between us. Measured, controlled, the kind of breathing that belongs to people trying to stay calm when everything inside them is on fire. There, on my laptop screen, was the proof. His wife, my husband. A quiet affair that had grown bold. They weren't being careful anymore. They didn't need to be. Or maybe they wanted to be caught. Ivan inhaled deeply, cigarette glowing like a slow-burning fuse. He exhaled smoke like it carried away the last of his illusions. His face was still, too still, but his grip on the cigarette told another story. His knuckles were pale, stiff with restraint. "I'm going to catch them in the act," he said quietly, steel laced in every word. I leaned back in my chair. "You do it, and so will I." He flicked ash into the tray beside him. Then he turned to me, irritation lining his voice. "I hired you to work, not to sit here watching this filth." Any other day I might have laughed, might have thrown back a line or two, teased him about his sudden sense of morality. But this wasn't any other day. "This is from my home," I said evenly, hollow. It didn't even sound like my voice anymore. Ivan froze, turned slowly to look at the screen again, then chuckled, dry, bitter, a sound without life. "That woman, she looks kind of familiar." Our spouses moved across the screen, like they'd done it 1,000 times. Their bodies aligned too naturally, their rhythm too intimate. It wasn't just sex, it was something practiced, lived in, like a language they spoke fluently, behind our backs. I looked at Ivan, and in my mind, I saw it. A metaphorical green hat sitting atop his head, the universal symbol of being made a fool of. I imagined one on mine too. "What a coincidence," they said. "My husband's mistress is your wife." Ivan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring blankly at the betrayal playing out on screen. "Go home tonight," he murmured. "Don't stay late. Check for yourself." I nodded, and then we sat in silence. We didn't bother to mute the sound, the moans, the whispers, the laughter. All of it filled the space like smoke, choking out the last pieces of dignity we had left. When it ended, Ivan checked his watch and scoffed. "Only a few minutes," he muttered. "What do you even see in that guy?" "That's kind of offensive," I replied flatly. By the time I walked through my front door, the lights were on. The smell of food greeted me, warm, familiar, too familiar. Anderson stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot like a man completely at peace, as if the world hadn't shifted beneath his feet hours ago. "You're home early," he said with a cheerful smile, wiping his hands on a towel. "Dinner's almost done." I inhaled, slowly. That smell. It was from the restaurant downstairs, the one I go to often. He hadn't even cooked, just picked up takeout, plated it like it was his creation. Still, he had taste. I smiled, a practiced move I'd used 1,000 times in different wars. I walked toward him, wrapped my arms around his frame, pressed my cheek against his chest, a mockery of love. "I'm so lucky to have you, sir," I whispered. The words felt toxic on my tongue. His arms tightened around me. "You'd be lost without me, sir," he said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, a gesture that was meant to be intimate. But he didn't even realize this hairstyle was new. Just another detail he never bothered to notice. I slipped from his embrace and went to the bedroom. The moment I stepped inside, I stopped. The sheets were fresh, the windows were open. Cool air drifted through the room, but it couldn't mask the scent lingering in the air. Perfume, expensive, bold, not mine. It was the same perfume I once wanted to buy, the one he called wasteful, irresponsible. And now here it was, soaking into our bed, worn by someone else. For months I thought his obsession with changing the sheets was just a quirk, maybe even a little OCD. Now I understood. The fabric had to be clean, not out of tidiness, but to erase the evidence of someone else. Later, at dinner we sat in silence, the clinking of utensils, the soft ticking of the wall clock. The illusion of normalcy was heavy in the air, but it was cracking at the edges. I watched him scroll his phone with one hand, picking at his food with the other. Finally, I broke the quiet. The bedroom smells like perfume. His fork paused, just for a second. Then his grin returned. Oh, that. I knocked over one of your bottles while cleaning. Must have spilled everywhere. My bad. I said nothing. I just studied him. The way his shoulders tensed, the subtle curl of his fingers against the table. Then, as if sensing the weight of my silence, he changed the subject. By the way, don't waste money on stuff like that anymore. He kept talking. Something about a watch he wanted. Something nice. His voice became a background noise, the kind you don't notice until it stops. My mind had already drifted, wandering down the corridors of choices I'd made, and the quiet reasons behind them. Why had I married him? Back then, I was focused, laser-sharp, career-oriented. Love wasn't a distraction I could afford, and time was a currency I spent exclusively on climbing ladders, not building homes. Relationships came and went, like seasons, short, forgettable, and easy to file away. And yet, at some point, the pressure began to swell, not from within, but from the outside. Family, expectations, social timelines wrapped in polite concern. He's local, my mother said when she introduced Anderson. Good stock, his family are farmers, salt of the earth, honest, reliable. That word, reliable, kept ringing in her voice like a sales pitch. Civil servant, stable job, secure future. The checklist of someone else's dreams. I said nothing. My silence was agreement enough. Then she lowered her voice, as if sharing a state secret. His parents live far in the countryside. You'll be here in the city. No in-law drama. A beat. And since his job isn't demanding, he'll have time to help around the house. I smiled, swallowed the hesitation like bitter tea. The house was mine, paid for by my family. So was the car. Anderson's paycheck barely covered his own food. I handled everything else. Groceries, utilities, vacations, even the hobbies he picked up and dropped without a second thought. He hadn't just married me. He'd married into my bank account, my stability, my life. I always knew about his first love, the woman he couldn't have. He told me before the wedding, "I'm marrying you because my parents want grandkids," he said plainly. But let's be clear, I'll never love you. It hadn't hurt. I didn't love him either. It was a contract, unspoken but clear. I provided comfort, structure, and he provided appearances. We were partners in practicality, nothing more. But agreements have boundaries, and he crossed one the moment he brought another woman into my home, into my bed, and worst of all, masked it with my perfume, like she could wear my identity as easily as my scent. Late that night, my phone buzzed. The sound sliced through the stillness, jarring and abrupt. The screen lit up, casting a cold glow across my face. I let it ring, let the silence sit a little longer. Then, just before voicemail, I picked up. "Boss, the proposal, right. Tomorrow's the deadline." My voice was calm, professional, efficient. I hung up and exhaled. Beside me, the sheets stirred. I didn't even turn. "Did I wake you?" I asked. Voice soft, almost sweet. No," Anderson murmured, still half asleep. "Not your fault. Your boss is the one being a jerk." Yet his words carried that sleepy annoyance, but it didn't matter. With a sharp click, I turned on the bedside lamp. The sudden burst of light made him wince, his hand flying to shield his eyes. He groaned, face contorting. I smiled. "Well," I said lightly, "I don't have a choice. The boss needs the proposal first thing in the morning." I pulled the laptop onto my lap, settled into the pillows, began typing. The soft, methodical sound of keys filled the room like a metronome of intentional delay. I typed slowly, deliberately, every keystroke a small declaration of space reclaimed. He rolled onto his side, burying his face in the pillow. "Just try to keep it down," he mumbled. I didn't answer. Instead, I dragged the night forward, typing, pausing, sipping water, stretching, reading news articles I didn't care about. Anything to keep the keys moving. the light shining, the silence shattered. Time stretched. The room stayed bright, bathed in the sterile blue of the screen. Past midnight, I closed the laptop with a satisfying snap. "Did I wake you?" I asked again. Same gentle tone. "It's fine," he muttered. "Your boss is the asshole, not you." I gave a little shrug. And with another deliberate flick, I turned on the bedroom light again. The brightness flared like a camera flash. Anderson recoiled, eyes squeezed shut, face tightening, every muscle tensed. I watched him flinch, and in that moment, I felt better. My boss wants this proposal finalized by tomorrow. I don't have a choice. My voice was matter of fact, but my actions were anything but hurried. I took my sweet time working on the document, typing at an excruciatingly slow pace, pausing frequently to sip water, stretch, or scroll through irrelevant news articles. The night stretched on the room, bathed in the sterile glow of my laptop screen. Finally, when the clock had long since crept past midnight, I shut my laptop with a satisfying snap. "So that's your excuse for being late." Ivan leaned against my desk, sipping his coffee, with a look of pure disbelief. I yawned, stretching my arms above my head. "I prefer to call it perfect timing." He didn't look amused. Instead, he stuttered my face, with a critical eye, before shaking his head. "You are playing a dangerous game, hurting the enemy 1,000 times, at the cost of injuring yourself." 800. I gave him a slow, deliberate shrug. "And I finished the proposal, didn't I? Surely the boss won't mind if I take a little power nap at work." Ivan let out a short, dry laugh. "If you are this exhausted, what about him? That depends on how much help his wife gave him last night." I shot him a knowing glance, my smirk widening. Ivan's frown deepened his brows, furrowing so hard they could probably crush a mosquito. "Is your husband even functional? She was clinging to me all night." I rubbed my chin in mock contemplation. "Why are you asking me?" I honestly couldn't remember the last time Anderson and I had been intimate. Work had consumed every second of my time. Meetings, deadlines, stress. Sleep was a luxury, let alone anything else. Ivan let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "Looks like he could use some supplements." I rolled my eyes, not dignifying that with a response. Speaking of Anderson and Ivan's wife, Juliana, they were practically a pair of star-crossed lovers, high school sweethearts, the kind that looked destined to go from school uniforms to wedding vows. But fate, or more specifically, Juliana's parents had other plans. They deemed Anderson unworthy and arranged for her to marry Ivan instead. Poor bastard, never even saw it coming. "Oh, by the way, boss," I said, stretching lazily, "I still haven't taken my annual leave. You did promise me a long vacation once this project was done, didn't you?" Ivan arched an eyebrow, studying me for a moment, before smirking. "You sure you'll make it that long?" Before leaving, I made sure to inform Anderson, "Honey, I'll be away on a business trip for a while. You'll have to hold down the fort at home." I spoke lightly as I adjusted the strap of my bag, making it sound like nothing more than a routine trip. For a brief moment, his expression faltered, though his words assured me that he'd miss me. The way his lips pressed into a tight, thin line told a different story. One, he probably thought I was too blind to notice. I watched him closely, my heart cold with amusement. "Oh, Anderson, you really think I don't know?" I packed light, taking only the essentials, and checked into a luxurious 5-star hotel. There I indulged in gourmet meals and fine wine, allowing myself a temporary reprieve in the comfort of high-thread count sheets. But my greatest pleasure, watching Anderson and Juliana through the hidden security cameras I had meticulously installed. The fool still believed those cameras were just for decoration. Divorce in this day and age was no simple matter, especially with the kind of money involved. Juliana was a married woman, and Anderson had no intention of walking away from my wealth. While I carefully plotted the most profitable way to sever this marriage, Ivan delivered a bombshell that made all my calculations momentarily meaningless. "Juliana's pregnant," he said, his voice edged with restrained fury. I blinked, momentarily stunned. The skewer I had just picked up lost all its appeal. Juliana's. What I asked, my voice slower, as if my brain needed time to process the absurdity of it. Pregnant Ivan took a long drag from his cigarette. His mood has foul as the storm brewing in his darkened gaze. Whose kid is it? I finally asked, setting my drink down with deliberate calm. No idea. He exhaled sharply, his fingers tightening around the cigarette, like he was contemplating crushing it into dust. I scoffed, tilting my head. Aren't you the fearless boss at work? How come you're such a pushover now? Ivan let out a short, humorous laugh and leaned back in his chair, his gaze distant. He hesitated before muttering, "My mom loves Juliana. She's been nagging us to have a kid. Had this gone undiscovered, that mystery baby would have been pinned on him without a second thought." I glanced at him, a flicker of genuine sympathy passing through me. "Boss, you owe me for this one," he muttered, stabbing his chopsticks into his food with far more force than necessary. We sat in silence, eating our late-night meal, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Then, without warning, Ivan slammed his palm onto the table, the impact making the plates rattle. "I'm going to bust them. Are you coming?" His voice was sharp-edged with an anger I could feel pulsing beneath his skin. I met his gaze, my lips curving into a slow, knowing smile. "If you are going, I'm going to." The driver, upon learning of our intent, turned what should have been a 30-minute ride into a reckless 10-minute sprint. I gripped my phone tightly, eyes locked on the surveillance feed. The timing was impeccable. Taking a deep breath, I stormed in with Ivan, bursting through the door before they could react. I thought I was prepared. I had seen it all through the cameras countless times, but nothing compared to seeing it live first. Love her. They sure knew how to have a good time. My breath hitched in my throat, my stomach twisting in ways I hadn't anticipated. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to snap out of the daze. My hand trembled slightly as I pointed an accusatory finger at them, my voice rising in shock. "What are you two doing?" Ivan, catching on immediately, played his role flawlessly. He grabbed my arm as if I were about to collapse, his face contorted in raw devastation. "Did you force my wife?" he roared at Anderson. It was our first time catching someone cheating. We were a little rusty. What were we supposed to do next? We exchanged glances. Come on, we'd seen enough drama to know how this went. I made the first move, storming toward Juliana and yanking her hair before slapping her heart across the face. Ivan followed suit, landing a few solid punches on Anderson. The driver who had rushed us here was now casually standing at the doorway, recording everything on his phone, enjoying the show. Shouts, curses, the sounds of things breaking and plea for mercy filled the room in a chaotic mess. For a moment, they were too stunned to fight back, scrambling instead to cover themselves with whatever they could grab. Then finally, Juliana snapped out of it and let out a sharp scream. That was Ivan's cue. He dragged her out of my house like a man possessed. Anderson lay sprawled on the floor, his face swollen and bruised, two dark circles under his eyes, making him look utterly ridiculous. The air stank of sweat, alcohol, and something sickeningly foul. The whole house was in shambles. After our little performance, I stood over him, looking down from above. "Let's get a divorce." He struggled to lift his head, his eyes filled with disbelief and desperation. Back when we first met, I had treated him civilly, mostly out of respect for our parents during our marriage. I had given him everything he wanted. I had been so lenient with him lately that he must have forgotten his place, acting like I was the one who couldn't live without him. Then thud, thud, thud. He suddenly dropped to his knees and started banging his head against the floor. "Baby, I was wrong. I just made a mistake every man makes. Please just give me one more chance." Hearing those words made me nauseous. "I work myself outside, making sure you have a comfortable life. I give you everything, and you don't even like me. Fine, but bringing another woman into our house, what the hell were you thinking?" I know I was wrong. I wasn't thinking straight. I swear it'll never happen again. If you are angry, hit me. Punish me. Men. When we first got married, he swore up and down that he would never love me. Now here he was groveling, When did you two start messing around? I asked coldly. It was just this. Once I swear she came on to me first, I had no idea she would be this shameless. If I hadn't randomly checked the surveillance and caught them in the act, I might have actually believed his nonsense. First, love, please. He threw her away just as easily. Anderson, you disgust me. He crawled toward me, trying to grab my leg. I kicked him away. I don't want to see you. Let me have some space to calm down. I played my part well. A woman utterly devastated by betrayal, choking back sobs as I slammed the door on my way out. One more second in there, and I would have burst out laughing. I'll do anything, just don't divorce me. His hoarse, desperate voice rang from inside, leaning against the door. I shook with silent laughter, barely holding it in. I pressed pause on my voice recorder. A few moments later my phone rang. Ivan, how's it going on your end? I asked. She admitted everything. He sighed, but she's insisting the kid is mine. Says if I want a divorce, I have to split my assets with her. I chuckled just as expected. If it were that easy, I wouldn't have gone through all this trouble. Anderson and I entered a cold war. I ignored all his pathetic attempts to win me back. Every meal he made straight into the trash. Every call ignored, then blocked. Eventually, I cut off all contact completely. I started staying out late, came home, reeking of alcohol, made sure to leave suggestive traces in visible places, threw his things out of the master bedroom. Before I had always been careful, never coming home too late, never drinking too much, just to keep him at ease. Not anymore. Finally, he snapped, blocking my way just as I was about to leave. We need to talk. I scoffed and smacked his hand off my arm. What is there left for us to talk about? His eyes lowered, his entire demeanor radiating a sense of hurt and betrayal. I take care of everything at home, running around all day, and you never once stop to appreciate it. All you ever care about is your work. He poured out his grievances, venting about how much effort he put in, how little I cared, and how long it had been since we had any semblance of a married life. So when he reconnected with his first love from his youth, he couldn't resist. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have cheated. Anderson roared at me. Oh, so now it was my fault. Classic. I rolled my eyes. First of all, you were the one who said our relationship was emotionally dead. Second, the house, the car, the bills. Who pays for all of it? Me. And yet all you do is bring home takeout every day and expect me to be grateful. Hearing this, Anderson guiltily rubbed his nose, but the next second, his confidence returned, and he puffed up his chest. Have you ever considered how I feel? What man wants a wife as overbearing as you? If you were more gentle and caring like Juliana, do you think I would have gone looking elsewhere? I gave him a slow, deliberate once-over. Oh, you mean Juliana, the woman who has a husband but still sneaks around with other men. Didn't realize you were into that type. His face twisted with rage. Then again, I continued tilting my head, considering what kind of man you are. A freeloading, spineless bum. I guess no normal woman would want you. Shut up. Marrying you was the worst mistake of my life, I said, deliberately provoking him, stepping closer. I made sure I was right within his reach. Face it, you are a pathetic excuse for a man without me. You are nothing. I said, shut up. He finally snapped and shoved me with full force. My shoulders slammed hard against the cabinet, a sharp pain piercing through me. As I staggered, I suddenly felt a warm trickle running down my legs. Shit, a second later, bright red blood spread beneath me. Anderson, who had raised his fist for another blow, froze midair. His expression changed drastically. You are pregnant. He grabbed my collar and yanked me up from the floor. Whose baby is it? I looked at his flushed, furious face, the veins popping out of his neck, and let out a slow, mocking smile. Look at him. When he cheated, he demanded forgiveness as if it was his right. But now that the tables were turned, he acted like I had just destroyed his entire world. Whose is it? He growled. Was it that boss who gave you a ride home last time? I knew it. What kind of work could you possibly be so busy with sleeping around her? Watching him lose his mind over his own imagination, I suddenly found all of this oddly amusing. Think whatever you want, I said lazily. What makes you think I owe you loyalty? Anderson's breathing turned ragged. You are underestimating me, I added with a smirk. If I wanted to, I could have men lining up from here to France. His whole body trembled in rage. This is perfect. Actually, let's just get divorced. You can go chase after your first love. I let my voice drop into a softer, more taunting tone though. Let's be honest. Do you really think she wants you? Every word I said chipped away at his self-control. His pupils dilated. His breaths came out in short, erratic bursts. Shut up, shut up. I let out a chuckle. Or what? You'll kill me. Something shifted in his eyes. The moment I finished speaking, he lunged his hands, wrapping around my throat, squeezing with all his strength. I made a show of struggling just enough to keep up appearances then. The door burst open. A group of fully armed officers stormed in, tackling Anderson to the ground, in an instant gasping for air. I slumped against the wall, my vision spinning. Ivan rushed over and helped me up. Are you insane? You nearly got yourself killed. Relax, I rasped, still catching my breath. I'm not dying today. His eyes flickered down, and his expression darkened. Wait, you are bleeding. Where are you hurt? I hesitated for a second before muttering under my breath. It's just my period. The door was still wide open, and the commotion had attracted half the neighbors, all of whom were shamelessly peering in with eager gossip, hungry faces. I decided to give them a show. Taking a deep breath, I turned to Anderson, who was now pinned to the ground. You not only cheated on me, but you tried to kill me to cover it up. You've been living off me all these years. How the hell did I wrong you? The officers exchanged glances. Domestic disputes were tricky. In the end, they could only mediate after Anderson swore up and down that this wouldn't happen again. The situation was ultimately brushed aside. After all that, you are just letting it go, Ivan asked, arms crossed. What else can I do? I sighed, rubbing my temples. Besides, my goal was never to get him arrested. I just wanted to ruin his reputation first. Then turning to Ivan, I asked, enough about me. What about you? He exhaled heavily. They're being difficult. Just want money. Refuse to take a paternity test no matter what. I haven't seen her around these past couple of days. No idea where she's been. It's fine. I'll talk to her, I reassured Ivan. Ever since I found out about Anderson's affair, I had hired a private investigator to keep tabs on him while he kept apologizing to my face behind my back. He was still secretly meeting up with Juliana. The whole ordeal about dividing assets, that was most likely Anderson's idea. According to the investigator, Juliana had initially wanted to run away with Anderson, taking the child with her, but for some reason he flatly refused and somehow convinced her otherwise. Love-blinded women were the easiest to deal with. The first thing I did when I got home was blend in with the neighborhood gossip circle. Those chatty old ladies who knew everything and spread it even faster. I sobbed dramatically, exaggerating every detail of Anderson's infidelity. It wouldn't be long before the entire neighborhood knew about it. The house, built conveniently close to Anderson's workplace, was surrounded by many of his colleagues. Soon the whispers would start, and his pristine reputation would begin to crumble. I found Juliana. Her belly had already started to show. How long do you plan on clinging to my husband? I asked. She glanced at me, her expression indifferent. If you can't hold on to your own man, what's the point of coming after me in love? The one who isn't loved is the real mistress. Love, I scoffed. Then why didn't he marry you? Or is it that he never actually intended to? That hit a nerve. Her composure cracked and she flared up instantly. You don't know anything. He will marry me. Sooner or later. She stroked her belly as if calming herself down. I shrugged, then pulled out my trump card, the recording. This was just a one-time mistake. I swear she came on to me first. I never thought she'd be so shameless. As long as we don't divorce, I'll do whatever you want. I watched as Juliana's expression crumbled piece by piece, satisfied. I nodded. If she could finally wake up from her delusions, I could chalk this up to her simply being another victim of Anderson's deceit. After all, my real target was the scumbag himself. But if she still refused to see the truth, then she had no one to blame but herself. Juliana left in a daze. I went home early as well, exhausted from all the drama. Ivan, seeing how drained I was, gave both himself and me a long break from work. I spent the next few days curled up on my couch, watching movies, and mindlessly popping popcorn into my mouth. Anderson, on the other hand, was clearly struggling with the fallout Juliana had brought upon him. It wasn't until midnight that I finally heard the sound of a key trying to turn the lock. Too bad for him. I had already changed the locks the moment I got back from the police station. After several failed attempts, the loud beeping of access denied filled the hallway, followed by a furious pounding on the door. I calmly put on my noise-canceling headphones and dialed Anderson's parents. Even though we had moved them into the city after getting married, they lived far enough away to avoid the usual mother-in-law conflicts. It would take them some time to get here. Meanwhile, the neighborhood group chat was already blowing up. I sent a trembling message complete with a hint of tears. "Can someone help me contact property management? I'm too scared to open the door. Given everything that had happened before, I was already somewhat infamous in the community." It didn't take long for someone to recognize me. That scumbag came knocking again. Some were skeptical. What's the point of calling property management? Just call the cops. I played my part perfectly. Voice still shaking. I already did. They said it's a domestic matter and won't intervene. That lit a fire in the chat. Outraged messages flooded in. Some advised me to lock my doors and hide while others announced they were already on their way. As I read the flood of messages on my screen, I felt a mixture of emotions well up inside me. By the time Anderson's parents arrived, their son was already pinned to the ground by a group of furious neighbors. What the hell? I'm just trying to get into my own house. Anderson struggled against the hands, holding him down. But the moment he spotted his parents, his face turned beet red. "Dad. Mom, what are you doing here?" Anderson had always been his parents' pride and joy, their golden child right now. They had no idea what their beloved son had done. "Wait, you are his parents," someone scoffed. TCH. I was just wondering what kind of upbringing produces a man who cheats and hits his wife. Anderson's mother and father flushed red with embarrassment. As the accusations continued to rain down, there must be some misunderstanding. His mother cried, "Let my son go," ignoring the shouting. I stayed hidden in the crowd, but Anderson's eyes still managed to find me in an instant. "You!" He lunged forward, only to be restrained by the security guards. "What misunderstanding?" I choked out, letting my voice break as I wiped away non-existent tears. "Tell me what part of this is a misunderstanding." Anderson's father, a man deeply concerned with his reputation, frowned and stepped forward, scolding his son. "What nonsense are you pulling? Whatever the issue is, can't you handle it at home?" Anderson, however, stood his ground, his posture rigid, his expression dark and venomous, like he wanted to tear me apart. "So what if I cheated?" he spat. "She's pregnant with another man's child." Anyway, the moment those words left his mouth, every pair of eyes in the room turned to me in unison. A chill ran down my spine. My face drained of color. My legs wobbled, as if they might give out at any second. "You are slandering me." I shot back, my voice shaking with rage. "You'd go to any lengths just to squeeze more money out of me, wouldn't you?" Without another word, I slammed a medical report against his chest. "Take a good look, Anderson. When exactly was I ever pregnant?" I stepped forward, my voice laced with fury. "The house, I bought it. The car, I paid for it. Every single expense in this household is covered by my salary. I've worked tirelessly to build this life, and you have the audacity to accuse me of something so absurd." Anderson picked up the paper from the floor, his face contorted in disbelief. "No, that's impossible. The blood on the floor. You don't even remember when my period is, and you dare call yourself my husband." I snapped. "Enough." Anderson's father bellowed his patience, finally snapping, "You disgraceful brat. Stop embarrassing me." Anderson's mother hurried to my side, her face stiff with an awkward smile. She took my hand, her voice soft and cajoling. "Margot, this must be some misunderstanding. Please, for my sake, Let's talk this over inside. Misunderstanding. I let out a cold laugh. Was it a misunderstanding that he had brought another woman into our home and slept with her? Right under my nose? I had made my point loud and clear, and I saw no need to escalate things further. Letting Anderson's mother guide me into the house, I allowed the scene to play out the moment the door closed behind us. Anderson's father delivered a sharp kick to his son's knee. Anderson staggered before falling to the ground. "You ungrateful bastard!" His father roared, his face flushed with rage. "I raised you only for you to grow up and become a cheating scumbag." Anderson's mother joined in, her voice shrill as she berated him. Anderson knelt there, taking the verbal blows without protest. The only thing that irritated me was the way he kept looking at me. His eyes dark, his expression twisted with something ugly. The scolding continued for a while, but I remained seated on the sofa, watching in silence. This was all for show. I knew they would never truly punish him. They made a scene, but in the end, their son was still their son. They weren't about to disown him over this. This performance wasn't for Anderson, it was for me. After all, the ones most desperate to stop this marriage from ending were his parents, if they were honest with themselves. I had been a damn good daughter-in-law. I provided for their son, kept the household running, and even helped out financially when needed. After their failed attempt to secure a connection with Juliana's wealthy family, I suddenly became their most valuable asset. In the end, under my firm insistence, they took Anderson away. "Margot, just take some time to cool down," Anderson's mother pleaded before leaving. "I promise we'll talk some sense into him before stepping out." She hesitated. "Then side divorce is a serious matter, Satter. You should really think this through carefully." I said nothing later. Even told me that Juliana had changed her terms at first. She had demanded half of his assets. Now she was asking for $500,000, calling it child support. Ivan scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. "Does she take me for an absolute fool? She cheats on me, gets pregnant with another man's child, and then has the audacity to ask me for money to raise it." He let out a dry chuckle. "Honestly, the fact that I'm not making her pay me damages just proves I'm a decent guy to make matters worse." Juliana had decided to keep the baby since I had blocked Anderson completely. He had resorted to sending a message through his parents. "As long as you don't go after Juliana, I'll agree to the divorce, but I want half of everything we own." It was only later that I learned what had happened after Juliana and I parted ways that day. She had gone straight to Anderson demanding answers. Anderson and I had been married for years, yet we never had children. His parents, despite wanting to keep my money, also saw value in the child growing inside Juliana. Between my firm stance and their newfound opportunity, they thought they had found a compromise. As for Juliana, Anderson's parents had promised her that once she gave birth to the child, they would welcome her into the family. At this point, I decided to seek out one of the few rational people in this entire mess. Juliana's parents, "Excuse me, are you Juliana's mother?" The elegantly dressed woman gave me a slight nod. "And you are?" "I'm the wife of the man your daughter is having an affair with." Oh, her reaction was almost indifferent, as if this matter had nothing to do with her. I slid a stack of documents across the table. "I know someone like me is hardly worth your attention, but she's carrying my husband's child." She flipped through the documents, and for the first time, a crack appeared in her otherwise composed expression. "Your son-in-law knows about it too." I added, her hands trembled slightly. "That man again." She took a deep breath, her voice strained. "I'll look into this matter. Miss, you may leave now. Of course, I have full confidence in your capabilities." Watching the distress on her face, I couldn't help but feel a wave of satisfaction. It didn't take long before Anderson came knocking again. "I already agreed to the divorce. What more do you want?" "Oh, and yet not a single mention of your outrageous demands," I said coldly. Fine. You want a divorce so badly." His frustration boiled over into reckless defiance. "Then I refuse. Let's see how you divorce me if I don't agree. Since you insist on making my life difficult, don't blame me for making yours miserable." Compared to my situation, Ivan's was much easier to resolve. I When Juliana's family arranged her marriage to Ivan, they had concealed the fact that they had forcefully separated her from Anderson. That alone put them in the wrong. And unlike me, Ivan wasn't as ruthless. Considering the years Juliana and I spent as husband and wife, I won't make things ugly. I just want a divorce, he said before her parents could respond. Juliana threw a tantrum. She declared she would agree to the divorce, but only if she was compensated. You expect me to raise another man's child? That's a bit much, don't you think? Ivan's gaze bore into Juliana's parents, making them visibly uncomfortable. A sharp slap echoed through the room as Juliana's mother smacked her daughter across the face. How did I end up with such a shameless daughter? Under the weight of her parents' pressure, Juliana eventually caved and signed the divorce papers. According to Ivan, they had her locked away at home until she terminated the pregnancy and cut ties with Anderson completely. With Juliana out of reach, Anderson turned his focus back to me. The security guards in my building knew him all too well by now. There was no way they'd let him in. After multiple failed attempts, he started lurking near my office. Instead, it was time to reel in the net eventually. Anderson managed to corner me outside my workplace, but the moment he rushed toward me, my bodyguards intercepted him. Margot, I only cheated, and you are treating me like this. Cheated, I tilted my head, feigning confusion. Oh, Anderson, I just want a divorce. And of course, to give my unfortunate boss a helping hand drop the act, he roared his voice, cracking with fury. You ruined everything. I'll kill you for this. Unlike before this time, he wasn't bluffing. He actually waited in ambush on my way home, a knife in his hand, fully intending to use it. Unfortunately, for him, my bodyguards got to him first. Frustratingly, I still couldn't have him locked away for good. We are married. I just wanted to scare her. Anderson protested at the police station. There was no actual harm done, so we can't press charges. The officer explained a simple marriage certificate had reduced attempted murder to nothing more than a domestic dispute. As we left the station, Anderson sneered at me. You made trouble for me, so don't expect to have it easy either. I failed this time, but there will be a next time at most. I'll spend a few years inside. I don't care. His expression was unhinged, his demeanor completely transformed from the man I once knew. I lowered my gaze, saying nothing. He might not care, but someone else does. Everyone around here already knew about Anderson's scandal. His parents, unable to withstand the neighbors' constant gossip, packed up and moved back to their hometown. Perfect. No matter how shameless they were, they wouldn't dare lose face in front of their relatives, especially not in the very house I had paid to renovate. One they had bragged about for years. Almost everyone in the village knew Anderson had married a wealthy wife. I drove into the village with ease, familiar with every turn. Along the way, a few elderly women greeted me with curiosity. Oh, Anderson's wife, what brings you back? I forced a brittle smile, one that looked even worse than crying. The makeup I had deliberately applied today made me look utterly exhausted. I'm here to finalize my divorce. I made sure my voice cracked at the right moment. You probably haven't heard, have you? Anderson cheated, the woman's pregnant, and lately he's been losing his mind, waving a knife around, threatening to kill me just so she can take my place. The old woman's eyes poignant, her face alight with gossipy delight. Really? But Anderson always seemed like such a quiet boy. Who would have thought he was this kind of person? The villagers had long resented Anderson's parents for flaunting their success. It wouldn't take long for this story to spread. I pushed open the courtyard gate. Inside, Anderson's mother was happily chatting with her friends. The moment she saw me, her smile froze. Well, Margot, aren't you busy running the world? What brings you all the way here? I said nothing. Instead, I dropped to my knees. Auntie, I beg you, please help me. Let me divorce Anderson. If this continues, he's going to kill me. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Anderson's voice echoed through the courtyard, clear as day, the threats he had made against me. Played loud enough for everyone to hear, one of the older women gasped, "Isn't this your daughter-in-law? Why is she kneeling? Help her up." A pair of hands reached down, lifting me to my feet. The eye drops I'd used before entering the house took effect, making my tears look even more pitiful, choking back sobs. I let it all out, detailing every moment of hell I had endured. I didn't even glance at Anderson's mother, though I could feel the rage radiating off her. And for the finishing touch, I tugged down the collar of my high-neck sweater, revealing a horrifying scar. Of course, it wasn't real. Anderson's mother stiffened, her hands twitching. She hurriedly waved away, the crowd trying to usher me inside. But I wasn't about to let her control the scene. I raised my voice. He cheated, got another woman pregnant. Fine, I could have let that go. But now he wants me to pay for the child's upbringing. And when I refused, he lost his mind. He tried to kill me. I can't even go home anymore. I had no choice but to come here and beg you for help. As if on cue, Anderson's father arrived storming through the gate. Margot, what the hell are you doing? I flinched on instinct, shrinking behind one of the older women. Take this inside. Family matters should be dealt with at home, not out in the open like this. Oh, please. If your son hadn't been so greedy, I wouldn't be here in the first place. I rolled my eyes internally. By now, a crowd had gathered, villagers, whispering among themselves, exchanging knowing looks. One of them spoke up. This ain't right at all. Your daughter-in-law spent money on your family, took care of your son, and this is how you repay her. If my son had a wife like that, I treat her like a queen. Cheating is one thing, but murder. Are you sure your son doesn't need to see a psychiatrist? The sharp-edged remarks dug into Anderson's parents like knives. I could see their faces dark and even further time to turn up the heat. I never wanted to make this public. But even the police can't do anything about him. If this keeps up, I might actually die. Anderson's father clenched his jaw so tight, I thought his teeth might shatter. Yet surrounded by judgmental eyes, he had no choice but to speak. Margot, don't worry. I won't just sit back and do nothing. The moment I see that ungrateful bastard, I'll beat him within an inch of his life. Under pressure from all sides, Anderson finally agreed to the divorce. The day we signed the papers, his parents dragged him in front of me. Margot. He sneered, venom dripping from his words. You must be really proud of yourself. Her. I slid the divorce papers toward him. Expression. Calm. Since he was the one who cheated, he was leaving with nothing. If their only son ended up in jail, his parents wouldn't be able to lift their heads in public ever again. They had to make him sign. Anderson knew it too. He wasn't ready to spend the rest of his life behind bars. See you at the registry office. Don't be late with one final glare. He grabbed the pen and scrolled his name across the page. I stepped out of the cafe. Ivan's car was waiting at the curb. It's done, he asked. Yeah, congratulations. You too. I opened the door and slid in. Moving on instinct, I had spent countless hours riding in Ivan's car while helping him run business deals, but after getting married, I had distanced myself from that life, mostly to keep Anderson from throwing a fit. Now, sitting in this familiar seat, I felt nostalgic. What the hell was wrong with me? That's when Anderson saw us. His face twisted with realization. He marched over, glaring daggers at Ivan. You two know each other, he snarled. Was this all a setup? Did you two plan this from the start? I tilted my head, feigning confusion. A setup? How was I supposed to know you just so happened to cheat with my boss's ex-wife? Ivan tapped his fingers against the steering wheel, his voice calm, ice cold. My ex-wife, my employee, both of them had terrible taste. Then his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I'd suggest you sign the papers and get out of my sight. Otherwise, he left the sentence hanging. I smirked. You have two options. Anderson divorce or widower. You won't dare. He spat. I leaned closer, eyes dark. Anderson's face turned ghostly pale. He stood by the roadside, mumbling like a madman. Meanwhile, Ivan drove off with me, leaving him behind in the dust behind us. I could still hear Anderson's father cursing furiously, but none of that mattered to me anymore. Are you sure this will work? That he won't come looking for you again? Ivan asked, eyes flicking toward me as he gripped the steering wheel. I nodded, then shook my head probably. Either way, giving him a reality check isn't a bad thing. Anderson was the kind of man who preyed on the weak and feared the strong. It was about time he got a taste of his own medicine. By the way, I changed the topic. Didn't your overseas branch need people? Maybe I should go and lay low for a while. Ivan chuckled. You'd actually be doing me a favor on the day of the divorce. Anderson arrived hand in hand with Juliana. Their fingers were tightly intertwined, a picture of blissful love, at least on the surface. The moment we signed the papers, they marched straight to the marriage counter and registered their marriage right in front of me. Even the clerk processing the paperwork couldn't help but mutter under their breath. Clearly unimpressed by their theatrics, it was obvious they were desperate to prove they were happy. Juliana, practically glowing with satisfaction, flashed her fresh marriage certificate in my face. Thank you for making this possible for us, she said smugly. I gave her a lazy nod. Oh, don't mention it. Just doing my civic duty. Anderson, on the other hand, had to deliver a classic dramatic line straight out of a soap opera. 30 years on the East Bank, 30 years on the West. One day you'll regret this. Regret? Regret what exactly? I had already heard that he'd just been fired due to character issues. No job, no income. Where was the love going to come from? Honestly, I was more curious to see which one of them would crack first. Later, I got an update on their situation from Ivan. With no job and no way to support himself, Anderson had no choice but to return to his hometown, where he lived off his parents. But small towns have sharp tongues, and soon enough, he became the subject of constant gossip and ridicule. As for Juliana, she had given birth to a girl, a fact that didn't sit well with Anderson's father, who strongly favored sons. She tried turning to her own family for help, but unfortunately for her, they had already washed their hands of her mess. Her parents were focused on having another child and had no intention of dealing with her problems. Anderson Kim, unable to vent his frustrations elsewhere, started taking it all out on Juliana. That was when reality finally hit her. She wanted out, but Anderson's parents weren't about to let her walk away so easily. None of this had anything to do with me anymore. Somehow Anderson managed to get hold of my contact information. He called me, voice thick with sobs, sniffling like a pitiful child. I was wrong. I see it now. Being with her made me realize you are the best thing that ever happened to me. I never should have said those things to you. Please come back. I swear, I've cut ties with her for good. This time I nearly burst out laughing. Was he joking? After all the effort I put into escaping that mess, why the hell would I ever go back? Just then, the aroma of food wafted through the air. I recognized it immediately. It was from my favorite restaurant downstairs. I smiled. This whole ordeal had left a lingering shadow over my family, but at least it had one upside. No one was pressuring me to remarry anymore. As for Anderson, if he wanted revenge, let him try. He'd need the ability to pull it off first. On the day I got my divorce certificate, Ivan had joked, if this were a novel, we'd be getting together right about now. I shuddered. Dating my boss? No thanks. I value my life. Somehow that was scarier than any of Anderson's threats. But as he said it, I finally felt the tension in my chest begin to loosen. The storm that had loomed over me for so long had finally passed. I was free. Work hard, Ivan said as he patted my shoulder before I left. I had my eye on you since you were a freshman. There was no romance in his words, just pure admiration. It reminded me of who I used to be back when I first graduated. I was bright-eyed, ambitious, full of drive before marriage. I was a success story, top of my class since childhood. The perfect child parents boasted about. I studied at one of the best universities in the country, breezed through my master's program, and was recruited straight out of school by Ivan, who was a year ahead of me. I built a solid career for myself. Then my parents started pushing me to settle down. In a moment of carelessness, I married the wrong man. Maybe in the beginning, life wasn't so bad. I was the breadwinner while he got to enjoy the perks of a free housekeeper. Luckily, we never had kids that would have made things infinitely more complicated. I should have known from the start, no man would ever be content playing second fiddle. To me, marriage was the only stain on my otherwise flawless record, which is why right now I was lounging on the soft, white sands of a Hawaiian beach, a cocktail in one hand, and a ridiculously handsome young man in the other. A well-deserved break, don't you think? I haven't seen her around these past couple of days. No idea where she's been. It's fine. I'll talk to her, I reassured Ivan. Ever since I found out about Anderson's affair, I had hired a private investigator to keep tabs on him while he kept apologizing to my face behind my back. He was still secretly meeting up with Juliana. The whole ordeal about dividing assets, that was most likely Anderson's idea. According to the investigator, Juliana had initially wanted to run away with Anderson, taking the child with her, but for some reason, he flatly refused and somehow convinced her otherwise. Love-blinded women were the easiest to deal with. The first thing I did when I got home was blend in with the neighborhood gossip circle, those chatty old ladies who knew everything and spread it even faster. I sobbed, dramatically exaggerating every detail of Anderson's infidelity. It wouldn't be long before the entire neighborhood knew about it. The house, built conveniently close to Anderson's workplace, was surrounded by many of his colleagues. Soon the whispers would start, and his pristine reputation would begin to crumble. I found Juliana. Her belly had already started to show. "How long do you plan on clinging to my husband?" I asked. She glanced at me, her expression indifferent. "If you can't hold on to your own man, what's the point of coming after me in love? The one who isn't loved, is the real mistress." "Love," I scoffed. "Then why didn't he marry you? Or is it that he never actually intended to?" That hit a nerve. Her composure cracked, and she flared up instantly. "You don't know anything. He will marry me, sooner or later." She stroked her belly, as if calming herself down. I shrugged, then pulled out my trump card, the recording. This was just a one-time mistake. I swear she came on to me first. I never thought she'd be so shameless. As long as we don't divorce, I'll do whatever you want." I watched as Juliana's expression crumbled piece by piece. Satisfied, I nodded. If she could finally wake up from her delusions, I could chalk this up to her simply being another victim of Anderson's deceit. After all, my real target was the scumbag himself. But if she still refused to see the truth, then she had no one to blame but herself. Juliana left in a daze. I went home early as well, exhausted from all the drama. Ivan, seeing how drained I was, gave both himself and me a long break from work. I spent the next few days curled up on my couch, watching movies and mindlessly popping popcorn into my mouth. Anderson, on the other hand, was clearly struggling with the fallout Juliana had brought upon him. It wasn't until midnight that I finally heard the sound of a key trying to turn the lock. Too bad for him. I had already changed the locks the moment I got back from the police station. After several failed attempts, the loud beeping of access denied filled the hallway, followed by a furious pounding on the door. I calmly put on my noise-canceling headphones and dialed Anderson's parents. Even though we had moved them into the city after getting married, they lived far enough away to avoid the usual mother-in-law conflicts. It would take them some time to get here. Meanwhile, the neighborhood group chat was already blowing up. I sent a trembling message complete with a hint of tears. "Can someone help me contact property management? I'm too scared to open the door given everything that had happened before." I was already somewhat infamous in the community. It didn't take long for someone to recognize me. That scumbag came knocking again. Some were skeptical. "What's the point of calling property management? Just call the cops." I played my part perfectly, voice still shaking. "I already did. They said it's a domestic matter and won't intervene." That lit a fire in the chat. Outraged messages flooded in. Some advised me to lock my doors and hide, while others announced they were already on their way. As I read the flood of messages on my screen, I felt a mixture of emotions well up inside me. By the time Anderson's parents arrived, their son was already pinned to the ground by a group of furious neighbors. "What the hell? I'm just trying to get into my own house." Anderson struggled against the hands, holding him down, but the moment he spotted his parents, his face turned beet red. "Dad, "Mom, what are you doing here?" Anderson had always been his parents' pride and joy, their golden child right now. They had no idea what their beloved son had done. "Wait, you are his parents," someone scoffed. "I was just wondering what kind of upbringing produces a man who cheats and hits his wife." Anderson's mother and father flushed red with embarrassment. As the accusations continued to rain down, there must be some misunderstanding. His mother cried, "Let my son go." Ignoring the shouting, I stayed hidden in the crowd. But Anderson's eyes still managed to find me in an instant. "You!" He lunged forward, only to be restrained by the security guards. "What misunderstanding?" I choked out, letting my voice break as I wiped away non-existent tears. "Tell me what part of this is a misunderstanding." Anderson's struggles grew more frantic, but the hands holding him down didn't loosen. His parents, still trying to salvage whatever dignity they had left, turned to me with pleading eyes. "Sarah, please, let's talk this through," his mother begged, clutching my arm. "You've been married for years. No matter what happened, it's not worth ruining everything over a mistake." I let out a bitter laugh. "A mistake? How many times does he have to make that mistake before it stops being one?" Anderson's father, a man who had always been distant but firm, spoke up. "We didn't raise our son to be like this. If he's done something wrong, he should be the one to fix it." "Anderson, apologize to your wife properly." Anderson's face twisted in frustration. "Apologize? I've already done that. How many times do I have to say it before she lets it go?" I took a deep breath, the weight of years of betrayal, disappointment, and exhaustion pressing down on me. I had given this man my love, my trust, my home, only to be repaid with lies and infidelity. "That's the thing, Anderson. You are not sorry for what you did. You are just sorry you got caught." His expression darkened. But before he could lash out, one of the neighbors, a middle-aged man with his arms crossed, let out a low chuckle. "Hey, Sarah," he said, tilting his head. "You got a lawyer yet?" I turned to him, eyebrows raised, because if not, he continued, "My sister's the best divorce attorney in the city. She loves cases like these, especially when there's a scumbag involved." Anderson's mother paled. "Divorce? No, you can't. Marriage is about compromise." I scoffed funny, because I don't remember Anderson compromising when he was sneaking around with Juliana. At the mention of her name, Anderson finally snapped enough about Juliana. He roared, "You think you're so smart, Sarah? You think you can just throw me away and walk off with my money?" The crowd went silent. I met his gaze, unflinching. "Funny you mention money, because last I checked, every single account is still in my name." His face went blank. "What?" I pulled my phone from my pocket, scrolling through the bank app. "See, I was a little worried about your sudden generosity yesterday, so I made some calls. Turns out, once you willingly sign over assets in a legal document, it's pretty hard to take them back." He stared at me, jaw tightening. "You wouldn't dare," I smiled. "I already did." The realization hit him like a freight train. Everything, his accounts, the house, the investments, everything he had spent years building was gone. He lunged again, but the security guards pinned him down with even more force. "You bitch, you ruined my life." I took a slow step forward, crouching, so we were at eye level. "Bill, no, Anderson. You ruined your own life. I just made sure you paid for it." His parents stood frozen, unable to find the words to fix what was beyond repair. Finally, the police arrived, summoned by the very same neighbors who had spent the past hour cursing Anderson's name. They hauled him to his feet, slapping handcuffs on his wrists. Domestic disturbance, harassment, and attempted assault. One of the officers muttered as he read Anderson his rights, "Not looking too good for you, pal." As they dragged him away, he thrashed in their grip, "Sarah, this isn't over. You'll regret this. You hear me?" I watched him disappear into the police car, my heart finally feeling lighter. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window. For the first time in what felt like years, I felt free. No more Anderson, no more lies. I spent the day making calls, one to my lawyer to finalize the divorce, one to a real estate agent to sell the house, and another to Ivan. How about a vacation he suggested when I told him everything? A long one. I smiled. You know what? That sounds perfect. That evening, I packed my bags, leaving behind a pass that no longer held me back. By the time I boarded the plane, I had already blocked Anderson's number, and when the wheels lifted off the ground, I knew this was the beginning of something new. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the video.